Group of maniacs. In Maniacs, we follow a group of college students traveling through the southern United States. Along the way, they find Pleasant Valley, a small town that seems frozen in time and filled with friendly residents. But the hospitality doesn't last very long. Little by little, the tourists begin disappearing while the locals treat everything like part of one huge town celebration. The town is led by Mayor Buckman. In the middle of the massacre, the only survivors left are Joey and Anderson. Anderson even gets captured and tied to a torture table, but manages to escape and confronts Buckman directly. After the fight, he forces the mayor to keep his word and let the two of them leave. The pair escape on a motorcycle and run into a local sheriff. But when they return to Pleasant Valley, they discover the town simply doesn't exist anymore. There's only an old cemetery there. The sheriff then reveals that the townspeople were killed during the American Civil War and return every year as vengeful ghosts. A sign reveals the curse: 2001 residents were killed, so 2001 Northerners must die in return. And when Joey and Anderson finally believe they escaped, barbed wire changes that. The police car. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, follows a group of young people traveling through Texas. During the trip, they cross paths with the Hewitt family, a completely insane family led by Leatherface. From that point on, the movie becomes a non-stop sequence of chases, torture, and escape attempts. In the end, the group's only survivor is Chrissy. After escaping the Hewitt house, she witnesses Leatherface killing her boyfriend Eric inside a slaughterhouse and desperately runs down the road searching for any way out. Chrissy finds a car, grabs the keys, and finally escapes. While driving through the dark road, she spots a police car parked on the side of the highway. For the first time, it genuinely feels like someone might survive. But Chrissy doesn't realize Leatherface has been hiding in the back seat the entire time. Out of nowhere, he cuts through the seat with a chainsaw and attacks her. The car loses control and even runs over the police officer standing nearby. After the crash, Leatherface simply walks away calmly. The night vision. In quarantine, reporter Angela Vidal and cameraman Scott are following firefighters during a report inside an apartment building. The problem begins when residents start behaving violently and the government places the entire building under quarantine. Nobody can leave. And as the infected population grows, the movie turns into a claustrophobic nightmare filled with dark hallways and screaming coming from every direction. In the end, Angela and Scott are the only survivors left and climb into the attic searching for help. But the place reveals something even worse. They find recordings, newspaper clippings, and notes showing that a former resident stole a mutated version of the rabies virus for experiments connected to a bioterror cult. On top of that, an extremely skinny and deformed creature suddenly appears and attacks Scott, smashing the camera light. From that point on, the movie is almost entirely lit only through night vision, and that sequence becomes one of the most terrifying scenes in the remake. Scott gets attacked again in the darkness and dies there. The camera falls to the floor while Angela desperately crawls trying to grab it. But before she can escape, the family. In the 2019 remake of Pet Sematary, the story completely changes one of the most famous moments from Stephen King's book and the original 1989 movie. Here, the one who gets hit by the truck isn't little Gage. It's Ellie, the Creed family's older daughter, and that completely changes the ending's atmosphere because Ellie already has awareness, personality, and fully understands what she's doing after returning from the cursed cemetery. After Louis buries his daughter in the mystical burial ground hidden in the woods, Ellie comes back different. She still talks normally, but something is clearly wrong with her, and the movie keeps making that feeling more uncomfortable little by little. The first victim is Judd, the neighbor who introduced Louis to the cemetery. Ellie invades his house and unexpectedly kills him. Shortly afterward, Rachel finally returns home trying to reunite with her family, only to get killed by her own daughter too. Turning Ellie into the main threat makes the movie far more disturbing than simply repeating the old version. As everything collapses, Lewis manages to save little Gage and locks him inside the family car to keep him safe. But before escaping, he tries stopping Ellie from burying Rachel's body in the cemetery. The problem is that Rachel already returns transformed and kills Louis from behind. From that point on, the movie basically accepts there's absolutely no hope left. In the final minutes, Lewis also comes back to life and appears alongside Rachel, Ellie, and even the cat Church, slowly walking toward the car where Gage is trapped. And then comes the creepiest detail. Lewis unlocks the car doors. The movie cuts before showing anything else, but makes it painfully obvious what's about to happen. The protocol. Cloverfield starts as a simple goodbye party in New York City, recorded through HUD's camera. But everything turns into hell once a giant creature appears destroying all of Manhattan. And the movie's biggest strength is its found footage style because the audience experiences the chaos directly through the character's eyes without any explanation of what's happening. In the end, Rob, Beth, and HUD manage to rescue Beth from her apartment and reach the military evacuation point. There, Lily boards the first helicopter that takes off. Rob, Beth, and HUD get on the second one. During the flight, they watch the military bombing the monster.
They just hit it right now! You guys, they just hit it!
For a few seconds, it looks like it's over, until the creature suddenly emerges from the smoke and crashes their helicopter. The survivors escape the wreckage, but hear through the radio that the military is about to activate the Hammer Down Protocol, a plan to destroy all of Manhattan. While trying to escape through the park, the monster suddenly appears and kills HUD. With nowhere left to run, Rob and Beth hide beneath a stone bridge, while sirens begin echoing across the city. Knowing they're about to die, the two record final messages to each other. Seconds later, the bombs start falling, and the footage ends in the middle of the explosions.
I love you! I love you!
And to make things even creepier, during the credits, there's a hidden audio message played backward saying, the landmine. In Inbred, the story follows a group of troubled teens and their social workers who end up in an isolated village called Mortlake. The problem is that the locals treat murder like it's some kind of town tradition, and as the movie goes on, everything turns into a brutal and absurd manhunt. By the end, only Kate, Tim, and Sam are still alive. Kate tries escaping through the fields alongside the others, but one of the hillbillies suddenly appears with a chainsaw and slices into her leg. Unable to run anymore, she desperately crawls through the crops, while Jim, the group's leader, casually shoots her for fun. The movie makes it clear that for those villagers, the entire massacre has basically become a sport. Meanwhile, Tim hides in the cabin basement and tries improvising a trap using liquor bottles and a Molotov cocktail. But the scene turns into almost a dark joke. Jim calmly looks at him and explains that the alcohol inside those bottles isn't strong enough to start a fire. The entire plan completely fails, and Tim gets killed there too. The final survivor is Sam. She manages to run through the open fields, but the hillbillies quickly catch up to her and even begin placing bets on how she'll die. And then comes the movie's most ridiculous scene. Sam steps onto a hidden landmine and tries standing completely still, but then a ferret crawls up inside her clothes, causing her to panic and move. The infected water. In the 2016 version of Cabin Fever, 5 college friends travel to an isolated cabin in the woods, trying to enjoy a vacation far away from the city. But everything falls apart when a horribly sick man appears asking for help. The group panics, kicks him out, and without realizing it, they come into contact with a deadly virus spread through the local water. The movie's horror works because the enemy can't actually be fought. There's no masked killer or supernatural creature chasing them. It's just an infection slowly destroying everyone's body while the group descends into paranoia. In the end, nobody escapes. Marcy panics after noticing the symptoms and ends up attacked by the infected dog. Karen rapidly gets worse, and Paul decides to end her suffering after realizing he wouldn't be able to save her. Bert tries returning to the cabin but gets killed by armed locals from the area.
You see that?
Paul survives for a little longer, but eventually dies alone in the woods. The only one left is Jeff, who spent most of the chaos hiding and drinking beer to avoid the contaminated water. He comes back celebrating because he thinks he survived everything, until he notices the first symptoms appearing on his own hand before being killed by the police. And that's it. Nobody survives to tell the story. The 11 bodies. The Dyatlov Pass incident follows a group of young people traveling to Russia to discover what really happened during the famous Dyatlov Pass incident, a real-life mystery where 9 skiers died under bizarre circumstances in 1959. But the movie takes that true story and suddenly throws time travel, mutant monsters, and secret Soviet experiments into the mix. In the end, after an avalanche and mysterious attacks on the mountain, only Holly and Jensen survive. While desperately escaping, they discover a hidden military bunker beneath the ice. Inside, they find documents connected to the Philadelphia experiment and realize the military had been trying to create teleportation and time manipulation technology. And of course, it goes horribly wrong. As they explore the bunker, deformed humanoid creatures begin chasing them through the hallways. The creepiest part is that the monsters seem able to appear out of nowhere, almost like they're teleporting between rooms. Trapped, Holly and Jensen discover some kind of time portal and jump through it trying to escape. The portal sends them directly to 1959, on the exact day of the original incident. And then comes the massive twist. Passing through the portal completely mutates their bodies, transforming them into the very same creatures that had been chasing them the entire movie. The time loop closes right there, and there's actually a really interesting detail hidden in the ending. At the beginning of the movie, one character mentions a witness claiming they saw 11 bodies in the snow, even though the official case only reported 9 victims. At the end, Holly and Jensen appear unconscious in the snow back in 1959, explaining exactly who the 2 extra bodies were. The Soviet soldiers capture the monsters and bring both of them back to the bunker. The final scene shows one of the creatures with the exact same tattoo Holly had, confirming everything. Free bird. The Devil's Rejects follows the Firefly family, a group of completely chaotic killers running from the police after years of crimes across the southern United States. The entire movie feels dirty and uncomfortable, almost like a criminal road trip mixed with horror. And the weirdest part is that as the story goes on, the movie almost makes the audience forget the protagonists are absolute monsters. In the end, after escaping Sheriff Weidel's torture, Otis, Baby, and Captain Spaulding steal a car and try escaping down the highway, but they soon run into a massive police barricade completely blocking the road. And then the movie delivers one of the most iconic horror endings of the 2000s. Freebird starts playing while the trio realizes there's absolutely no way out. Instead of surrendering, they simply slam the gas pedal and drive straight toward the police. The scene feels almost like a collective suicide. The three pull out their guns and begin shooting while speeding down the highway. The police answer with a barrage of bullets, completely destroying the car. The movie cuts between close-ups of the characters getting shot while the song plays in the background, almost turning the massacre into an epic farewell for the villains. Originally, Rob Zombie actually intended for the story to end there, implying all three died in that confrontation. But the characters became so popular with fans that he eventually brought them back years later in 3 from Hell. Even so, many people still consider this the true ending. The Wedding. In Rec 3, Genesis, the story follows Clara and Coldo during their wedding in Spain. The party starts normally, filled with friends and family, but everything changes when one of the guests starts acting violently after becoming infected by a virus. Within minutes, the reception turns into hell as dozens of guests attack each other, while Clara and Coldo get separated in the middle of the chaos. Unlike the first 2 Rec movies, this one replaces part of the found footage style with the more cinematic and exaggerated tone. And honestly, it works better than a lot of people admit. After spending the entire movie trying to survive apart, the couple finally reunites in the venue's kitchen, but they're surrounded by infected people. Their only chance to escape appears when a priest starts reading Bible passages through the loudspeakers, temporarily freezing the monsters. During the escape, Coldo's grandfather, who couldn't hear the scriptures because he wasn't wearing his hearing aid, attacks Clara and bites her. Desperate, Coldo uses a decorative sword to amputate her arm in an attempt to stop the infection, but it's already too late. As they get close to the exit, Clara begins fully transforming. Police officers order Coldo to stay away from her, but he hugs his wife anyway. The two share one final kiss before she attacks him. Seconds later, soldiers shoot both of them, ending the wedding in the worst possible way. The new species. Day of the Dead 2, Contagium, takes the classic zombie formula and turns it into something extremely weird. Here, the infected aren't just violent monsters. They still talk, keep part of their consciousness, and even have psychic abilities. The movie mixes horror with science fiction, treating the virus almost like the next stage of human evolution. By the end, the survivors are trapped inside a hospital, completely overtaken by the infection. Isaac is one of the patients trapped there, Emma is a pregnant woman trying to survive the chaos, and Dr. Donwin attempts to control the situation while everything falls apart around him. On the other side are Boris, Jackie, and Sam, former patients who have now been fully transformed by the virus. But they don't just want to kill the survivors. In their minds, the infection is evolution, and everyone should join the new family. During the final confrontation, Boris kills Ava, and Isaac realizes there's absolutely no escape left. To avoid transforming, he uses the gun's last bullet on himself. Meanwhile, the epidemic completely escapes the hospital and begins spreading throughout the city, meaning that, in the end, everyone either dies or becomes infected. Despite the title Day of the Dead, many fans consider this sequel basically unofficial, since it barely has any real connection to George Romero's classics. The Psycho Sniper. In Downrange, a group of friends get stranded on an isolated road after their tire suddenly blows out, but they quickly discover it was caused by a sniper hidden in the mountains. The entire movie basically takes place in that same spot, creating a suffocating feeling that nobody can escape the killer's aim. In the end, only Karen and Jody remain alive. Desperate, they set the car on fire to create a smokescreen and try escaping. At that moment, a police car arrives with a sheriff and snipers. For the first time, it feels like rescue has finally arrived, but it doesn't last long. The sniper quickly starts killing the officers. In the middle of the smoke, Karen tries running but gets shot. Now only Jody is left alive. With no other option, she decides to fight back. Jody grabs the police truck and drives straight toward the tree where the killer is hiding. The crash knocks the sniper to the ground. She grabs his rifle and tries shooting him, but the gun jams, so she starts beating him with it instead. Then comes the movie's cruel irony. Jody notices marks carved into the rifle, counting the sniper's victims. Furious, she delivers one final hit, but the impact accidentally causes the rifle to fire into herself, and so she slowly dies there. And the most disturbing part is that the movie never explains who the sniper was or why any of this happened. And well, if you want to see more horror movies with seriously messed up endings, click on the screen and watch the next video. I'll see you there.